Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a drama from Belgium. This is spoken in the Flemish and French language with English subtitles, released in the year 2015, directed by Robin Pront, and this film is called The Ardennes. So The Ardennes is about two brothers, David and Kenny. Now they are criminals, and at the start of the film there is this home invasion that goes horribly wrong, and Kenny is caught and thrown in prison for 4 years. So Kenny had a girlfriend named Sylvia, and since Kenny has been gone, Dave has been keeping Sylvia company, so much so that they've actually fallen in love, and now they're expecting their first child, and so they've got a lot of happiness. But Kenny has now been released from prison, and he's coming back into their lives, and he's hell-bent on winning Sylvia back. And so Kenny has a lot of hope in David that he can turn his life around if he supports him, but at the same time David's feeling a lot of guilt because he wants happiness in his life, but in order to get that happiness he's going to have to break Kenny's heart, which is very dangerous because Kenny has psychopathic tendencies, and he's also been influenced by very negative people that he's met in jail. So the mother of the whole family wants to keep them all together and wants to live happily ever after, but that threatens to spiral out of control when something happens that forces David to go from his clean lifestyle back to his traumatic past. And so what happens from that point on, and whether or not this family can go on the straight and narrow, is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Ardennes. I wanted to watch this movie for one clear reason, and that reason was that the producer of Bullhead was involved in the making of this movie. Now Bullhead, if you haven't seen my review of that film, I thought that was an absolutely fantastic experience, one of the most devastating films I've seen in a very long time. It had a masterclass performance from Matthias Schoenaerts, who was this fantastic Belgian actor who has since gone on to Hollywood. If you haven't seen Bullhead, please go and watch it. I thought, as I said, it's one of the most devastating films because of the fact that the characters were so sympathetic, and so that's definitely one of the most depressing experiences you can have, and if that's your type of thing, then I definitely think Bullhead is for you. So when it comes to other Belgian films, one of my favourite directors happens to be Fabrice de Veltz, who was a horror director from Belgium who created one of my favourite horror films of all time called Calvaire, now aka The Ordeal, and I thought that was just a really disturbing film that really pushed the boundaries, and I wasn't expecting how much I would like that movie. And so since then Belgium has really been on my radar, and when I knew that The Ardennes has been released, I thought I definitely have to see this movie. There are some very recognisable Belgian actors in this movie, especially the bad guy in this movie was the main character of Borgman, which once again is another fantastic film. If you haven't seen Borgman, once again I'd highly recommend you check that out. If you haven't seen my review, please once again check that one out as well. And so there's a lot of movies from this region of the world that have been very impressive, and so for that reason I was expecting The Ardennes to be an equally impressive film, and that's exactly what I get at the end of the day. There is a problem to The Ardennes that prevents it from being as memorable as films such as Bullhead and Borgman, but it's still a movie that really hits you with a hard punch because it does all the minor things very well that contribute to make a very rewarding experience. And so this is a character drama. This is a movie about people being brought up in very broken environments, and how that broken environment can sculpture a very negative influence on people and make them do things that have devastating consequences. And those devastating consequences, the domino effect it has in concluding up to what is just a whole sense of tragedy. This movie is a very tragic feeling, it's a very depressing feeling, and it's one of the darkest films that you'll come across. It's a movie that's not guaranteeing you a happily ever after. It's a movie that's showing you real people in real situations, and sometimes it's not a fairy tale sort of ending. And so if you like that kind of thing, The Ardennes will really impress you. It's a crime film, but at the same time, as I said, it's a character study, and that character study is magnified to a very intense level. So there's great performances from the actors. I thought especially Davia and Kenny, who played the brothers, I thought the brotherly love was there, but what the most tragic part of this film was is that both brothers wanted a happy life, but unfortunately one of them had to be broken-hearted. And I always thought that if Kenny had his heart broken, what would the consequences be for David, and especially Sylvia? Now Sylvia had a really troubled upbringing and a really troubled life with Kenny, but now she has a newfound hope as far as making a good life for herself with David, but David is connected to Kenny. So there's always that troubled past that is whirling around, and that whirlwind is basically a never-ending cycle of torment and a heartache. And I thought that heartache, as I said, it's thrown onto these characters in a way where I thought that it was just a train wreck ready to happen. It was a car wreck, and I never thought that the overall effect and the devastating consequences were going to be pretty. And right at the end, I thought it was an absolutely devastating finish, which this really summed up the whole depressing mood that this film is. And so there's a lot of movies out there where the audience need hope, the audience need to feel good, but this movie will not do that. There's a lot of movies, so Bullhead as well, it will not make you feel good. And so if you're not that type of film fan, then definitely The Ardennes is not for you. But if you want a movie that looks at very real characters with very real problems, the influences of, as I said, broken environments, then this movie is definitely one I would check out. I thought David was a guy that I could really sympathise for, and I was expecting to hate Kenny, who when he's come out of prison, he's come back into the family life, and I thought to myself, alright, this is a very conflicted person. This is a guy who on the outside has that macho bravado, but on the inside I thought he was a really damaged soul. As I said, he's a product of his environment. He's very easily influenced by very strong characters, and so the shortcomings of Kenny's character while directing him in a path where I never thought he really wanted to go, but he didn't have the strength to stand up to the negative influences. And so I thought, okay, although I don't like what Kenny is doing, and I thought that Kenny was in the way of the happiness for the rest of the family, I could still sympathise with Kenny's cause because I didn't think he was strong enough to really stand up and actually make a life for himself, whereas David, he had a really troubled past like Kenny, but he has had the strength to move on. But unfortunately, as I said, that negative influence is always behind him, and I never thought that this was going to have that happy ending that a lot of people, I'm sure, will hope that it does have. And so if that's typical of this cinema from this part of the world, is that they create stories that have that certain sense of tragedy that's not going to make you feel good. So I thought the depressing quality is amplified through the fantastic cinematography. It's a very, very dark film, both tonal and visually. I thought the soundtrack was fantastic. It's something that creates a certain level of intensity to it, and it's a very subtle sort of film. So the first half of it is that character study of very interesting people that is made possible from a fantastic script and fantastic acting performances. And then the last half, when he's introduced into with these really bad people, it starts to go down a very dark crime passage, and that crime passage leads up to a devastating set of consequences from everybody involved. And I thought to myself, all right, well, I'm really happy with what I got, but unfortunately there is a problem that prevents it from being as good as films like Bullhead, and the biggest problem is the fact that it goes for 90 minutes. Now Bullhead went for 2 hours, and I thought 2 hours is a fantastic runtime because all these characters and all the very interesting situations that the script created, I thought it left it enough to actually utilise all the potential the film had. There's a lot of avenues that were very interesting, and I thought all those avenues were closed up. Whereas in the Ardennes, it goes for 90 minutes, and I thought it would have benefited from a little bit more because the potential in the film, I thought, okay, it was realised, and it was actually thrown on the screen in a very rewarding way, but I thought there were little parts that I thought could have actually stretched it out a little bit more to get a fully satisfied reward. And so I wasn't left dissatisfied. I thought, okay, this is a fantastic film, but I just thought with a little bit more time it could have been a little bit better, because I thought there were some sort of moments that were a little bit rushed, and I was left wanting a tiny bit more at the end. But putting that aside, I still thought it was a very, very impressive Belgian film. If you are a fan of this style of cinema, dark crime dramas / thrillers, it's more of a character study, but it does go down a really dark path in the final, say, quarter. If it sounds like your kind of thing, then I would highly recommend this film. I'm going to give The Ardennes 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.